Something must have just been announced.
Tesla just spiked to 9%.
All stocks just did this, straight line up.
Welcome to the Gigacast. My name is Gav, here today with Sawyer, Omar, and Farzad. And today we have to talk about these goddamn tariffs that are coming down from the sky. Chaos is reigning. What is going on in America and really the world at large? Before we get started, real quick, 73% of you who watch these videos are not subbed yet. If you're watching on YouTube, tap that sub button. You're not going to want to miss the content that we have coming up. It's about to get real in here. Let's kick into things talking about tariffs and really how this is affecting Musk Industries and so much more as a whole. Sawyer, how would you like to kick us off today?
Yeah, so I think we should touch on Tesla first because I think that's the company that's going to be most impacted by this. I think we've discussed it at some length, but obviously we already know that Tesla is the number one most American-made auto manufacturer in the U.S. And basically what this means is Tesla's gone out of their way to vertically integrate and localize their supply chain as much as possible. And they've done the same thing at Giga Shanghai. I believe the supply chain localization there is like 96% now, I think, roughly, maybe 95. We don't know the exact supply chain localization rate in the US, but we do know there are parts content, and that can be seen on the NHTSA website. And for instance, the new Model Y, I believe, is 70% US, Canada content, 20% Mexico. So we don't know where that last 10% comes from. So maybe we can just assume it comes from China. So I know that Elon had replied to me that, I had sort of posted out a list about all the auto manufacturers that make their vehicles in the U.S. that sell in the U.S. and Tesla was 100%. Every Tesla sold in America is built in America, but that doesn't mean all the parts come from America. So Tesla's in a tricky situation like all the other auto manufacturers are in that even if they built their cars in America, they still have to source from Mexico, Canada. There's tariffs now in those two countries. And of course, this China situation with 100+% tariffs now is insane. So I think what Tesla's going to ultimately end up doing is try to localize even more than they already have. And I think we don't really know, even if like, let's say 10% of their parts come from China, we actually don't know if those are high value parts or low value parts. And so that's why it's sort of tricky to calculate the financial impact of this for Tesla, because let's say it's entirely possible most of their high value parts come from the US. For example, I think they build their drive units at Giga Nevada. I think that they build obviously their batteries in Nevada with Panasonic. Their 4680s come from Giga Texas. So I think it's kind of hard to nail down exactly what the financial impact will be. It'll be less than what other automakers are going to experience. Ford and GM, I think, are quite screwed, honestly. And especially smaller automakers like Nissan and I know Ferrari, even then, they already raised their prices 10%. I don't know. I don't think we're going to see Tesla really raise prices all that much yet, at least. I think most companies are sort of in a wait and see approach right now. So I think that's likely what we're going to see from Tesla. But it is going to be a huge impact against Tesla and all companies, really.
Omar, are you familiar with the breakdown of where the materials are coming from and how this could affect things?
Yeah, I mean, as Sawyer said, about 90% is coming from North America, although, that's increasingly up in the air as to whether NAFTA and the USMCA are going to be upheld. But there is a significant portion, that last 10%. A lot of these power electronics and key pieces of an electric car do come from Asia, whether it's China or other Asian countries. And, with these huge tariffs, if you have 100% tariff on 10% of the goods, that's going to make the car more expensive. Now, Tesla will be comparatively cheaper compared to other cars. But if all cars are rising in prices, you might see a fall in aggregate demand that makes it more difficult to grow. So it is troubling. I think it kind of explains a lot about why Musk, somebody who said, I love Trump as much as you can love another man, he's essentially saying he's a little bit gay for Trump. And yet he has to kind of call out and, say what he believes about tariffs, which is, look, I think Musk is as aligned as anybody on U.S. manufacturing. He loves American manufacturing. He says we need a manufacturing movie, right? But if even people like him, people who have the 100%, number 1, 2, 3, and 4 most American made cars in recent years. If even people like him are worried, I mean, those are the companies that should really be benefiting from this. I think the danger here is the goal is great. We want to make sure American manufacturers succeed. The challenge is if we have these huge tariffs and this escalating trade war, are we actually making it more difficult for some of those American manufacturers to do business?
Yeah. I think the multifaceted nature of this thing is what's really so interesting. You have you guys covered it so well. I think the other variable too, not just like the relative pricing structure of like, say, Tesla versus everybody else, legacy auto. Like Tesla will definitely go up, but then everybody else will go up more because, again, that localization aspect, you're going to be less exposed to tariff. But the other thing too is Tesla's coming out with a cheaper vehicle in the next couple of months here. And that's one thing that's being completely missed, is that now you're getting a double whammy effect. You're having your relative pricing. Yes, everybody's pricing will go up. Total demand will go down, depending how badly the economy is going to be impacted by this sort of like this gambit that Trump is doing, right? It could just put a damper on everybody, right? But the other portion of it too is that again, we don't know if it's cheaper Model Y, we don't know if it's cheaper Model 3, we don't know if it's like a Cybercab with a joystick, which I've pulled away that that prediction. But whatever this new cheaper vehicle or platform is, it's going to create an even bigger gap against the competition, right? So the question becomes, how big of a total economic impact is this tariff ordeal going to do, right? What's going to happen? How long is it going to go for? Is this a permanent thing? Is this a negotiation tactic, right? Is this going to try to isolate China and sort of bring the EU more in parity with the United States and create better agreements between those two countries? Is China going to retaliate even harder and say, okay, bro, Elon's your right-hand man. Maybe Tesla can't do business in China anymore, right? We don't know. Like, these are the kind of risks that are now opened up. I do worry
that, the Chinese government could use Tesla sort of a puzzle piece. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
I agree. And I think that's a legitimate thing that people need to think through. Is like, okay, for China to do that, the question becomes, who needs more who? Does China need Tesla more, or does Tesla need China more? And that's a discussion. There's a lot of moving pieces here. I think that's the key takeaway here. There's a lot of moving pieces. I think the tariff discussion has forced a lot of hands. I think Trump single-handedly has forced the world to decide what they want to do. And everybody, and then we're just waiting to see, okay, where are the chips going to fall? Like, who are going to be the first countries that are going to move? Who are going to be the first countries that are going to be like, you know what, Trump, I'm going to do what you want me to do. And how well is the U.S. positioned from a leverage standpoint to be able to survive that? Now, again, from a localization perspective, from getting themselves removed from the impact, Tesla is extremely well positioned. But again, if you're capping the total demand by ruining the economy, then it's like, okay, so you're the tallest short person. Congratulations, right? That's the kind of risk that Tesla has. Now, long term, I think companies with very strong balance sheets. Again, this is if it goes poorly. I'm taking the poorly side, right? If it goes poorly, if it goes well, then Tesla wins even harder, because now you're stimulating the West. Like, Trump gets what he wants. He gets a deal with Europe. China might weaken, so that might hurt Chinese demand for Tesla in the country. But then the EU, United States, all the different partners that they strike deals with, maybe India comes into play, right? All these things then start to stimulate Tesla's demand, and then they go gangbusters, right? So it's heavily, like, right now, macro is dictating absolutely everything. This tariff discussion is going to dictate absolutely everything, including Tesla. But in the long term, regardless of what may happen, the companies that have the best balance sheets, the lowest amount of debt, and the best manufacturing capacity to get stuff built profitably and ideally with as many variables that they can control, which is something that Tesla has done for a really long time by vertically integrating, they're going to be in the best position possible. Now, in addition to that, Musk industry is a huge national security variable for the United States. Battery supply chain, rocket industry, right? These two are gigantic pieces that the United States has to have. So that's another thing he's got on his pocket, right? But it's very uncertain. It's extremely uncertain where we're going to go, and I think we'll get clarity in the next 4 to 6 weeks. I think in the next 4 to 6 weeks, we will know if Trump is winning with this thing, And if he's not winning, right, that by default means China's winning. Because these are the two parties going to war right now. So it's like, okay, so depending on who wins, what does that mean for a company like Tesla and everybody else?
Who do you think can hold out longer? Chinese government or Trump?
I mean, that's the question. That's the $1 trillion question, right? So, and I would love to get y'all's thoughts, because like for me, I think the U.S. can probably hold out longer this time around, because China has a real estate crisis that they've been dealing with for a while. They have a demographic problem that's not getting fixed anytime soon. So long term, they're putting themselves in a worse position, right? And then in a position where you have the U.S. being the consumer and the China being the exporter, if the consumer stops buying, where's China going to place this product? They're just that's how their economy works. They just flood the market with stuff, with cheap stuff, good stuff, but lowest cost per value that they can offer, right? If the U.S. stops buying that, what happens?
Well, actually, we just saw Amazon today report, I think for the Wall Street Journal, they just reported that Amazon has canceled a bunch of orders over the last 24 to 48 hours from China.
Yeah, really?
Because they're like, they don't want to pay the tariffs. So they're going to source it elsewhere. Put that?
But where? Who has the economy to absorb the U.S. demand? Right? Yeah. That's Trump's gambit. Is like, I am going to wait you out. And then China is going to be like, and then China's going to try to show strength, be like, nah, I'm good. Or I'm going to partner with somebody else. But in reality, do they? Do they have the economy to be able to survive this? I don't know. That we will get the answers very soon.
Trump has to be careful.
We have to get the answer. Yeah,
we're less than a year and a half from the midterms, and that's not much time to get all through Trump's agenda. So he risks, if he keeps this going, these tariffs going, he risks the U.S. going into recession, and that almost guarantees that you're probably going to lose the House or Senate or whatever in the midterms. So,
and here's my weird take on this is that the fact that he's doing this now, right, tells me that he has a better chance to win than we think, because he has to do that. He has to come out with a win for the midterms for him to push through his agenda, because he's already creating all this chaos, right? With Doge, like whatever you want to call it, he's already creating all this chaos. So he has to come out with a winning strategy. And he has to win big. If he doesn't win big, forget it. But
this is a nightmare scenario for companies. This is impossible to plan anything.
Forget it
in this scenario.
Yeah,
brutal.
Yeah, a lot of uncertainty and doubt. Before we continue going on specifically how these tariffs will affect Tesla, potentially SpaceX and other areas, I've got a quick thing that every Tesla owner should be aware of.
I want to give a huge shout out to Jowua for sponsoring the Gigacast. They did send me some stuff a couple months ago, actually, before I knew that they were going to sponsor the Gigacast, because I know they had some stuff I wanted. So we're going to quickly check out what I decided to get. I got the all-season floor mats in the back here. I got a sort of a stowaway tissue box there with a little shelf, which is nice and convenient. We're going to move to the front here. Again, all-season floor mats in the front. They're super nice quality, and the sidewalls are really high up, which oftentimes when you get all season floor mats, they don't go as high as this. So I like that. We got a little nice storage organizer that goes right under the screen. You can't even notice it's there except for this little tab. Super nice, but there's no like sunglasses holder in a Tesla. That's convenient, like on the roof here. So I decided to get that. And then of course we got this nice and easy to install. You just throw it into the 12 volt down there, and you can charge your USB-A. You got two USB-Cs as well as a USB-C phone charger. And then lastly, last thing I had to get, obviously, anyone who gets fast food or eats in the car, it can get messy. So I got these foldable trays that you just put right in front of you while you eat. Super convenient. And they fit literally perfectly in the front. They're designed for that, actually. So super convenient. So again, thank you, Jowua, for sponsoring the Gigacast. I believe we'll have a discount code that you can get 5% off in the description of our videos. So scroll down to check that out. And I believe the discount will just be automatically applied at checkout. You don't need to type in any code or anything. So again, thank you, Jowua, and thanks for listening to the Gigacast.
Hey, if you enjoyed that video of Sawyer showing off his brand new Tesla featuring the Jowua equipment and tech that is amazing to have inside there. It looks like it's straight out the Tesla factory itself. Use code GIGACAST to get yourself some and live freely. With that being said, let's jump right back into this tariff conversation. I wanted to hear your guys' thoughts. We've talked a little bit about Tesla, just specifically the other companies as well. So you've got SpaceX, etc. Do you see this largely affecting them too?
Well, less so SpaceX. Obviously, companies like Neuralink and Boring Company, they're not really selling products. They might source a little bit from other countries, but they're not high volume manufacturers like Tesla is. So by far, Tesla is going to be the most impacted by this. And not just because of the tariffs, but if you're impacting the economy as a whole, people aren't going to spend as much. They're not going to, even if Tesla comes out ahead of other automakers on the tariff front, they're still going to be negatively impacted as a whole because people aren't going to want to spend as much if the economy goes to shit. So,
yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, I think you guys are hitting on it. So understanding that you're going to have just a ton of uncertainty, very difficult to plan for. You don't know who's going to outlast who. What are your guys' thoughts right now in regards to like potentially the stock? I know we don't talk a ton about the stock, but I do feel like this is something that could affect it specifically in the short term. And I'm just curious, is this where you guys are looking at this? Hey, this is a buying opportunity for us, right? As it gets driven down, this can get worked out. Tesla's in a good position. We like the long term. Let's add here.
Yeah, well, what I'll say is, unlike the dot-com bubble, the '08 financial crisis, COVID, all of this tariff stuff can be gone with a single Truth Social post. Like this is not a systemic problem like it was with those other things.
Not yet.
So yeah, right. If it goes on, then it will be. But for now, it's just something that I think, like I said, everyone's in a wait and see mode. Audi is holding their cars at the port. Amazon's canceling orders. There's other companies holding their cars and things that they've manufactured at the ports. So it's just so chaotic right now. Nobody wants to make any crazy decisions. So wait and see mode. That's what we're in.
I mean, I will tell you again, none of this is investment or financial advice from anybody. But the way I'm thinking about this situation is, I think the worst is yet to come. I think the peak fear is yet to come. I think it will. For this to work, it has to be done within the next 4 to 6 weeks. If you wait any longer, we go into recession. Too much uncertainty. Prices are too high. It's like literally unsustainable to put an all-out tariff on China of 104%. It's like the entire economy grinds to a halt, right? Mm-hmm. So this is Trump's way of saying, okay, pause. Everyone pause. Let's see who folds first. And somebody has to fold within 4 to 6 weeks, because otherwise we don't have anything. We don't have an economy, right? So I think depending on what happens after that fourth to sixth week, will give us a signal on where we might be going. If countries like Japan, South Korea, Vietnam, the EU start striking more favorable deals with the United States than there were before, then that puts the United States in a much better standing against China, because the US can be like, you see, people want to do business with me. They're going to come build their stuff in my country, not yours. And what's one thing that China has suffered since COVID? It's a lack of trust in the country, because the whole world went into disarray. But the other big one is that the over-reliance on China for supply chain and manufacturing. So they have two very huge fundamental things going against them. And this is Trump's plan, I think. So, but we're not going to get resolution on that until 4 to 6 weeks, because Trump is going to try to bleed everybody dry. He's going to try to bleed everybody dry so that he gets the best possible deal. So I don't know. But again, that's assuming that Trump has played this well. That's assuming that Trump actually has understood the problem deeply, and he knows that he can do this. If he fails, and it's like instead the EU starts doing deals with China, or nobody comes to the table and the economy really starts to tank, then I fear the opposite scenario, which is just a global recession, and everything's going to get really weird.
You guys think this impacts the launch of Tesla's more affordable model? Because let's say they had a whole list of suppliers they were planning on sourcing from, and now all of a sudden there's this tariff. They're like, okay, do we switch suppliers? Will it take longer? Or do we just take the hit and raise the price?
Depends where they're localized.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, depends where they're sourcing that material from. Yeah.
Omar, I want to get your thoughts on a couple of things here. And I do want to circle back to what you were just saying there, specifically with the EU, especially now that, we're seeing FSD in Europe. But before we do that, we're talking a little bit about the political side of this. And obviously, Elon, he's still in the thick of that, right? Like, he still has access. He's still around. There were a lot of reports of him, talking to Trump, trying to potentially get these tariffs removed. Obviously, he's also having a all-out beef with Peter Navarro. Directly on X, he apologized to BRICS for calling Navarro dumb as a sack of bricks. He said that was insulting to BRICS. So yeah, he's kind of going all out right now with everything with the government. So just curious your thoughts there, Omar.
Yeah, I mean, I think with tariffs, it's not really a situation that's tenable long term. So Trump has certain pressures that he has to respond to as well, right? Like we mentioned, there's the midterm elections. There's even, impeachment. if people are very upset, if people are feeling poor, then I think that puts pressure on the administration. So, I think one way or another, this is going to have to be resolved. Whether there's trade negotiations and you say we made a deal or you back down, I don't think this is going to be a situation, especially as you see, tariff rates going up from 34% to 100% and beyond on China. I don't think this is a situation that's tenable long term. So we're in a period of a lot of uncertainty and everybody's freaking out. There's a lot of uncertainty. I mean, the market is just like shooting up and down like it's bouncing on a trampoline. And nobody can quite predict what's going to happen next, right? You have Black Monday, which turned out to be kind of a green Monday at the end of the day. And, it's just chaos. You got the basis trade blowing up. But, what you want to kind of look at is what is the eventual outcome here? Do we end up with sustained long-term trade barriers, which I think is sort of the base case expectation of the market? Or does this unwind through the news cycle in ways that we can't quite project? And we don't know what's going to happen, but my base case is more towards the latter side, that because of the immense pressure, this has to resolve one way or another. And we're probably going to start seeing trade deals first with friendly countries like, the EU, for example. And then I think expanding on eventually, reaching some type of negotiation with China that results in a number of different concessions from both sides, but lower tariff levels. So if that's really the situation and people are freaking out about tariffs, there's even some infighting within the Trump administration about this, as you mentioned, between Peter Navarro and Musk, then it could be that people are sort of panicking and factoring in a worst case scenario while ignoring a number of other things that are happening in the world, right? Everybody's talking about tariffs, but the world continues to move on. There's more things going on. Tesla's gearing up to launch an unsupervised service in Austin in June. There are, probably a lot of different issues and things good and bad that people are ignoring because they're so caught up in this trade conversation. So many times with Trump, you see, a lot of noise, a lot of chaos, and then it's resolved one way or another. So this is just a period of tremendous uncertainty. And I don't think anyone can quite figure out how exactly it's going to play out. In terms of the more affordable vehicles, which, they have a company update less than 2 weeks from now, I'm kind of thinking they might show off these new, more affordable vehicles then. There's no doubt that it'll probably make the new, more affordable vehicle more expensive. But because the existing vehicles will probably also get a little more expensive, it'll still be relatively cheaper. So if there are tariffs for a longer period than we'd like, maybe several months or even a year, having a vehicle that starts at a lower price point is going to be absolutely essential, because people are already having a huge problem affording new cars. And this affordability crisis is about to get way worse. So if Tesla really is able to bring a much more affordable model to the market, the timing potentially couldn't be better.
And here's the counterintuitive piece of this tariff equation too, is because one of the major EV manufacturers in the world is so good at localizing, and if these tariffs are even semi-permanent on auto specifically, you have put the nail in the coffin of, well, gas cars are cheaper than EVs. That has ended, right? So now you have a complete flip when it comes to the psychology of owning a vehicle. Because everyone's going to try to buy like a Civic, or they're going to try to buy a Accord or a Camry or a RAV4, and then they're going to see, why is this thing 20% more expensive? How is this Model Y cheaper than a RAV4? How is this Model Q, whatever it is, right, cheaper than a Corolla or a Camry? That's crazy, right?
My rebuttal.
Well, you know, Farzad, actually kind of the ironic part is many of those Japanese cars have more cars that are made in America than the American car companies.
That was literally going to be my point just now. I was going to say,
100%.
if you look at the
That's so
top
true.
10 most American-made lists, half of it's Tesla, half of it's Honda. Wild. The number
Yeah,
one,
and this is actually why there's going to be
Great
so
point.
much more pressure. The number one place that's feeling the brunt of these tariffs is Detroit. And Trump ran on being a big
Very
winner
good
for
point.
Detroit. He said, hey, this guy, Joe Biden, he's going to ruin you guys with his EV mandate. So, you know, they've already sort of made some exceptions for auto parts. That's going to be a really key one relationship to manage between Detroit and Trump with these tariffs.
listen to this. Ford brands itself as an American manufacturer, built Ford Tough. It's branded as this like all American brand, right? If you actually go onto the NHTSA parts content list, the Honda Ridgeline has around 70 to 75% US or in Canada parts content. The Ford F-150 has about 32%, I think, less than half. So they're sourcing out from either whether it be Mexico or China or wherever else. But that just goes to show you that Ford, the Detroit automakers have done a horrible job at localizing.
So can you make that bigger, Evan? Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Wow. So Cybertruck 65%.
Yep.
Model 3 75%.
So the number on the left is US Canada. The number on the right, for the M, that stands for Mexico.
Got it. Okay, got it. So there's USMCA
Yeah.
basically. Okay.
So 90% North American. And I think a lot of these parts are exempted from tariffs under USMCA.
Yeah, look at that. The Ford F-150 Lightning, 29% in the US and Canada. And look, there's nothing for Mexico. So that tells you it's likely everywhere else is just coming from China or other countries. That's insane.
The Mustang.
Oh, yeah. That's brutal. When you look at the Cybertruck price comparison against the F-150, that's going to leave a mark.
Yeah.
So are you expecting those companies? Well, okay. So you guys are saying two things, though. It sounds like you're expecting those car companies to have to really raise the prices of their cars as well. But in addition, it sounds like there's some exceptions that have already been made. Can someone elaborate on the exceptions?
Well, obviously, there's been a free trade agreement between the US, Mexico, and Canada. So these automakers have set up their supply chains like US, Mexico, Canada's one country. No matter what, you can always move your parts freely. And sometimes people will make a raw material in the US, ship it to Canada, ship it to Mexico, ship it back to the US. So, you know, these guys are in a really tough position because, I mean, in a way, this is why Trump is doing these tariffs. This is his stated rationale. Hey, why are you American companies moving all this production overseas? At the same time, when you've got a tariff taking effect now, what are they going to do? Hey, everybody pick up one corner of the factory in China, you know, let's move it over here. Okay, let's start, you know, making electric motors and batteries and, you know, power electronics for the car. It's not that simple. When you have something like a car factory, these big industrial products, they take in some cases years to move production over. So what happens in the next few years if these tariffs are there long term? It would be devastating for Detroit. And that's really why my base case expectation is that we see a resolution here one way or another.
Yeah, I don't understand this expectation from Trump that like these companies can all of a sudden just move their manufacturing to the US. Like they want the iPhones to be built in the US. I don't think he understands how unrealistic that is.
I don't think that's his play.
His administration has said it. That's all I'm saying. It's like
I don't think that
iPhones for everyone.
I don't think that's his play. His play is to get manufacturing out of China. That's his play.
I think he's trying to onshore it to the US.
I think that's part of it.
I think you're right. Half of it's like the China piece, but I think the other half is like, well, let's bring it.
I think it's like
manufacturing back to
90% of it. I think it's 90% of it. Because if you look at his rhetoric, like EU and Canada both retaliated, and they said the only country that has retaliated is China. I think that's the lens to look this through. Now, I agree that is there some like insaneness and like unrealistic nature of pushing the boundaries and expecting companies to just bend over backwards to do what he wants? Of course. But if you have the leverage, that's how you get exactly what you want.
Okay, if you're encouraging that though, then why slap high tariffs on Vietnam, Taiwan, and others?
Because you're trying to get an MCA plus. You're trying to
But
get
it's
everybody
also-
under MCA, USMCA.
It's not just the
I could be wrong.
it's not just the gamble on high tariffs though. It's the gamble on I'm Trump, I'm freaking nuts, I'm gonna do what I want to do. You're gonna bear the brunt. There's no ration or reasonablism like in this moment. You can bend or break. I'm gonna keep doing this. Like you can't be like a rational, cool-headed person and pull this off, right? You have to be a certain type of person.
This does remind me a lot of Elon's management style. It's like he's so unpredictable. You never know what he'll do next. It's Trump's the same exact way.
100%.
And that way they're alike.
100%. I think it's one thing, in my opinion, one thing Trump does well, he understands what leverage he has. And that the brutal nature of him is that he's not afraid to exercise whatever leverage he thinks he has. But that turns him into a bull in a china shop. That turns into, especially in an arena like government and international relations that has been so status quo and risk off for so long, right? This guy has come in and just basically kicked the door wide open, is blaring trumpets from the top of his lung, and he's just throwing bombs everywhere. He's like, yo, what's up, bitches? I'm back. And that's how he's playing it. So the question becomes, will this actually work? Because the only way this works is if he actually has the hand he thinks he has, which is that the United States economy can survive this better than every other economy in the world. And if that's true, and he waits long enough, then he's going to get what he wants. But there is a threshold. There is a threshold. And the question becomes, are other countries going to push him to that threshold? Are they equipped to push him to that threshold? It's crazy.
Yeah, I think the only rationale I can really think of is that these rates are so absurdly high that they're not meant to be long-term at all, but to make international headlines and bring people to the negotiating table. And I think they've certainly done that. But if you just sort of look at the goal of helping U.S. manufacturers, yes, somebody said, I support slapping a tariff on my competitors, but please don't slap a tariff on my suppliers. And it's so true, right? If you just have this blanket tariff, well, you might have a 25% tariff on auto imports, and that may make you more competitive. But if you've also got a 25% tariff on your suppliers, the cost of producing that product goes up, and you ultimately become less competitive. In some cases, it may actually make more sense to import the product and pay the 25% tariff rather than pay all the tariffs on the supply chain. So our goal is to really help American manufacturers. Instead, we've introduced a lot of supply shocks, introduced a lot of difficulties, and there's no easy fix. You can't just move an auto factory. So some concessions are going to come out in the news cycle for this to be tenable. I mean, one thing I would suggest is maybe, hey, if a company announces that they're going to be investing in US production and moving production here, maybe give them a break on tariffs until that factory's built or something like that. But just some concession so that we actually achieve our goal of helping US manufacturers. Because as it stands, you do have some protection against competition, but also a huge increase in the cost of doing business that really ties their hands.
Something
Real
must
quick.
have just been announced.
Yeah. Tesla just spiked to 9%.
Yeah.
All
yeah.
stocks just did this straight line up.
Yeah. And
Yeah, so I've
Trump
got
just
this-
raised tariffs to 125. China.
Yep, it's coming in. I'm waiting on Evan's tweeting it on the other side of the room, so we'll have it in a second for some of these pieces as
up
they're continuing to
10%,
come
man.
out. But yeah, we are moving
Jesus.
pretty hard right here.
10.5. What's going on?
So
Can we take
it's Walter Bloomberg
Is
time.
that what that was? Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So all right, we got a few things here. Trump.
So the story
90
was real.
90-day pause on tariffs has been authorized, applies to reciprocal and 10% tariffs. Also, he's raising the China tariffs to 125%, effective immediately. Oh,
All right.
boy.
1 second. So 90-day pause on everybody except for China. China's going to 125.
Oh,
Or the
wow.
75 countries. The 75 countries that have come forward, 90-day pause, China 120. See, I mean, this whole thing is to fuck China. This
all it
whole
is.
thing. This whole from the very beginning was to get everybody to the table to be like, yo, bro, come with me. This
Wow.
whole time.
So we are still moving up right here at the moment. Like you guys said, Tesla just, off that news, we were basically flat on the day. At one point earlier today, we'd been up, then we went down, and then I think we flew back up here at the moment. So everything's just been absolutely going crazy. We are up now 10% exactly at the moment. So fresh high of days back to 244. So, okay, understanding that this is really just on China, how does this, maybe change your guys' thoughts slightly as to what we were earlier discussing around
It's
Tesla?
just like I said, it can be gone with a single truth post.
There you go.
That's what we're seeing.
Yeah, literally exactly what he said. And I mean, this was all pretty predictable if you don't start panicking with everybody else and you actually start thinking about things. I mean, these tariffs took effect last night. We barely had a few moments of impact, and then he comes and walks it back and does a 90-day pause. And you saw when the story leaked a few days ago how we had that V-shaped recovery. The markets are ready to bounce just as soon as this news comes out, right? And we knew that. So it's kind of unsurprising. And this is why it's sometimes good to invest in moments where others are extremely fearful.
Talking about, earlier, I was just asking you guys, what are we doing with the stock right here? Well, we're up 11.5% now at the moment, almost at 250. Yeah, there you go. A single truth post that'll just move it along the lines of those things. So you can see tariffs completely move all over the place. China now just continuing to raise. What's your guys' best bet on what China does back? Another raise?
Probably.
They want to show strength. They have to. Right? So not... Go ahead, Homer. Go ahead.
I mean, eventually you run out of numbers, 500, 1,000, 10,000.
The universe is infinite, bro. Come on.
Ultimately, they're going to have to get into bilateral discussions on not only tariffs, but a number of different factors. So that's going to be the inevitable result of this. The fact is, both of our economies need each other. Without China, the U.S. is more poor. Our dollars buy less. And without U.S. foreign investment and U.S. as an export market, China suffers as well. It's only about, I think, 16% of their exports, but you're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars here. So inevitably, the two will come to the table. China's kind of the whale in this situation, but they're still reeling from a property bubble, over leverage. Right now, it's big talk, and, it's scary when everyone just keeps raising tariffs on each other. And you've got this brutal trade war brewing, but the forces of economics will push them to come to the table one way or another and start discussions.
I'm looking real quick at so it's closed right now, but the Hang Seng Index, they had a pretty wild day. At one point, I think they were down like 6%, something along those lines. And then that went back to green and closed green 0.68%. I can only imagine what's going to happen with that tomorrow. They're still down, 16% the past month, 12% in the past 5
Tesla's
trading
up
days.
13.
Yeah, Tesla moving right here. This will be, if Tesla can hold this move, one of its biggest up days in a little while. That's not an earnings day.
So now let's think about this, right? So do we know what the 75 countries are?
I don't think it's 75. Is it 75 countries, or that 75 countries have called him?
Who's getting is China the only one that's omitted from this pause?
I do have a full list of the countries. Evan, if you do want to pull that up, Gavin posted this last night as well. I believe that this would be that list.
It sounds like it's not a pause on just those 75 because they haven't retaliated or anything.
Yeah.
So,
Interesting. Authors a 90-day pause substantially. Okay, so there's not even a 10% tariff, right, on these countries in that case?
substantially removed, he said. But can we read that? Can we read the whole post real quick?
Let's just put it up. Yeah, leave it.
Yeah. So, based on the lack of respect that China has shown to the world market, can you make it a little bit bigger, Evan? I forgot my glasses. Thank you. Oh, it's doing that stupid thing. Okay.
I can read it if you want.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sure.
okay. Based on the lack of respect that China has shown to the world's markets, I am hereby raising the tariff charged to China by the United States of America to 125% effective immediately. At some point, hopefully in the near future, China will realize that the days of ripping off the USA and other countries is no longer sustainable or acceptable. Conversely, and based on the fact that more than 75 countries have called representatives of the United States, including the Department of Commerce, Treasury, and the USTR, to negotiate a solution to the subjects being discussed relative to trade barriers, tariffs, currency manipulation, and non-monetary tariffs, and that these countries have not, at my strong suggestion, retaliated in any way, shape, or form against the United States, I've authorized a 90-day pause and a substantially lowered reciprocal tariff during this period of 10%, also effective immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So it's that like second to last sentence that I think is the interesting piece here. Like you said, substantially lowered reciprocal tariff, right? So is there a pause? Is it just a lowered reciprocal tariff? I honestly am not
like it's the pause
sure.
on all the individual higher tariffs for all the countries. And then everyone will just get a baseline 10%, it sounds like now, for 90 days or so, whatever. And then China will be singled out and get the 125.
So he's playing a little game here with the EU as well, like you guys mentioned, where he's just trying to target China, but the EU also had retaliated. But is he just saying like, hey, you guys are small chickens, like my fight's not with you?
Do we know that EU is not included in that?
I mean,
it's kind of a carrot and a stick. He's throwing a little bit of a carrot. He's saying, look, if you want to play hardball with us, if you're going to retaliate, then you're going to have a tougher time. For those guys who came to the table, we're going to give you a pause. We're going to lower the tariff rates. I think now these guys have to negotiate with a gun to their head, essentially, right? They know that they have to get a deal done within 90 days or these tariffs come back into effect, and they're going to remember the market panic that it caused. So I think that could potentially be good. And a number of trade deals will probably be signed in these 90 days. I think what it also tells markets is, in some ways, he is willing to pause this to make sure it doesn't impact the U.S. economy. I think that base case expectation of the market that he's willing to sort of let everything burn to make a point or to negotiate, markets are going to sort of update their expectation after this pause, knowing that he'll do what he can to make sure that things continue to flow smoothly.
Yeah, I think the market's going to take this as, okay, Trump might be crazy, but he's willing to like pull it back a bit if things get too nuts. Whereas before, I don't think the market had that confirmation. They were like, Trump might just go all the way to hell, so yeah.
But I think that from his perspective, it's whoever comes to me, right? So you have to, if you come to me, I'll drop the tariff, right? Or we'll go into a deal and figure it out. So now what's going to be very interesting to know is exactly who are those 70, like who is getting, is it just China that's getting screwed? Again, like that go back, because this is so important to understand, because if EU is still going to have this tariff, right, that's your biggest ally, and your biggest ally is going to have to decide, like, okay, am I going to partner with the US? Am I going to partner with China here? Like what's going on? So that's the key thing here. Man, this is crazy, huh?
Yeah. Story just keeps developing.
It kind of does feel like he's winging it a little bit, but
yeah, this is a 10%.
Just a little bit.
we just had a 10%. I mean, from this morning, pre-market trading, 10% move to the upside on QQQ. Like that is insane.
This is like a trader's dream.
If you think about it from a negotiating perspective, if you don't even know what you're doing, how do you expect other people to know what you're doing? I'm kidding.
Wow, the NASDAQ is up almost 8%. That's insane.
Have you guys ever seen those videos that went viral for a little while? It was like, never let them know your next move. And it'd just be like this 1 minute video of a person and they'd be like eating spaghetti and then they're jumping out the window. And then it's like, you just never know what they're going to do next. And it keeps it entertaining. It kind of feels like that.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, Trump is a president where you always have to read between the lines. He never quite says what he's really thinking. He says what's interesting, what's going to get headlines. You kind of have to think it through a little bit to figure out what he's really going to do. And this happens so often in markets where markets start pricing in a scenario where they're sort of taking him literally or at his word, when in reality, it was pretty predictable that a pause like this might happen for countries that are negotiating favorably.
Yo, my portfolio is up 9% right now. This is the biggest single day I've ever seen.
That's okay. Don't get too excited. It'll be down 9% again tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, it'll be gone. No, it'll all be gone.
It's just getting started.
Tesla's almost back to 250. We're breaking through 250 right here, 12.5% up. Apple up over 10% right now, also in the day. Google 6.5%. I mean, everything's moving.
This is just the beginning, though. This is just the beginning. This is the beginning of a negotiation.
Imagine we close red today.
Who knows? I mean, right? The other countries would come out and be like, "Hey, we don't subscribe to this." Like, no. Like, we want a better deal.
Okay, this is, I guess, an interesting geopolitical thing. Is everyone pretty much okay with the U.S. targeting China? Is there going to be other countries that come out and they're like, no, like, don't target China with these tariffs. Like, we're going to take a stance against that. I don't feel like China has like a ton of friends. Well,
it all comes down to, that's a phenomenal question. The partners to China will be the people that are invested in China. How many countries are invested in China that are not Chinese, right? This is part of, I think, what Trump, I think, knows. There has been a flight away from China since COVID. There has been a flight away from China, right? And so this is why I think this strategy could work, is because the people that you're hurting is a lot less than you would have hurted in 2019 or 2020 before the pandemic. Now you have a forcing function that says, hey, brother, let's be partners. But the reality is people don't want to do business with you anymore. They used to, because you had the cheapest labor, you had 1.3, 1.4 billion people, and we thought we had some sort of security and stability. But the reality is that that's not really the case, because we are overexposed to you. And then you have a virus that just leaks out of your thing, the economy collapses, and then we're like, holy crap, we're way too over-reliant on you, right? So I think the US has way more friends. The US has way more friends. We just have a guy who acts crazy. So the question becomes, do they trust the crazy guy, or do they trust the guy, or do they trust the country that has a totalitarian government that people have realized controls too much of the important stuff?
Yeah.
That's the equation.
That is the right question to be asking. Quick thing, if this was the close right here, this would be a top 7 day in history for the stock market, which is nuts because 15 minutes ago, it would not have been. So just crazy to see how this continues to move things. Really interesting thoughts, guys, across the board. Do we want to touch real quick? It's slightly different topic, but on FSD rolling out in Europe?
I mean, I will tell you the first 3/4 of this podcast is now completely obsolete. FYI.
I know.
I think it'll be fun. People can hear us in real time, kind of changing our thoughts.
No, I mean, I think this is going to continue to be an ongoing discussion issue. But in terms of what's material long term, I think Farzad is right that FSD is probably material long term. And this trade war is probably going to come to a logical resolution that doesn't destroy the world economy, right? And it's easy to lose sight of that when there's so much panic in the markets and everyone's freaking out. They're seeing their portfolio go down. But what matters long term really is, I think, the core technology, the products. So yeah, Europe didn't launch FSD yet. They're still waiting for regulatory approval, but that could be coming quite soon. And I mean, if you watch this video in the Netherlands, it's pretty damn impressive. You've got cyclists, you got pedestrians, you got roundabouts. The way this model is scaled to work in not only North America, but China and Europe as well. I mean, these are very different countries with very different roads. And there's still no other self-driving system that works in more than one market. I think what we're going to see is, as Tesla launches their unsupervised service in June, as they roll it out to the United States and across the United States much more quickly than other countries other companies like Waymo, I think we're going to see them move pretty quickly into China and then into Europe as well with unsupervised. And that's really the key here, that this technology allows them to scale much faster than anybody else. And you're seeing it in this European video. and in all the videos from Chinese testers.
100%. And what's interesting about that too is like, let's say this tariff thing ends up being a beneficial deal between the EU and the US, where the US can sell into Europe with lower tariffs on vehicles. All of a sudden, an already pretty popular EV brand in Europe is going to get a huge boost from a price decrease relative to where they were before, because the tariffs are going to be lower, and they're going to have a brand new car that's also coming out that's going to be even cheaper than that, with the only technology that can realistically work anywhere in Europe. This is like a huge trifecta thing for the company, if it actually comes to fruition.
There's some loud trucks outside, but Omar, I wanted to ask, we haven't really seen like any major updates on FSD in a few months. Do you think that's just because they're allocating all those resources towards the June Robotaxi launch?
I mean, I think international support was a huge part of the work they did in the first quarter, getting it out to Europe and getting it out to China, or at least making sure it's ready to launch there. We're not really going to see much of that in the US, but obviously this is huge for them actually making it available in other markets. In terms of the next generation model, obviously they are training the unsupervised model and next generation models. I think we're probably going to see a major update come out this month. And it's going to be another leap forward. There's a list of upcoming improvements I think they're going to deliver on that they've been waiting to deliver on with V13. Things like handling sirens, destination options. Those are all going to be really exciting. But I think you're spot on, Sawyer. The roadmap is, number one, launch unsupervised in Austin. And I think the team is just laser focused on that.
Awesome, guys. Hey, unless anyone else has comments on those, I know we've said it a few times that we wanted to take some questions from the audience, and we did actually put out a post and we got several people putting in questions. So I figured I would take a couple of them and throw them into the mix here. And then we can wrap up maybe talking about Sawyer's new Tesla as well and hit on those pieces. So question here for whoever wants to take it. First one, this was, how can Tesla prevent robotaxi vandalism? You see what's happening with Waymos around. Can the car automatically dispatch police to its location when they basically move to this full, robotaxi model? Especially what we're seeing already with, some of the Cybertruck stuff. Do you think that they're going to struggle there with vandalism?
I mean, what else can you do besides having cameras and enforcing the law? I mean, if you have vandalism, that's more a commentary on the state of that society than the robotaxi. Yeah, I think that's a fair way to go about it. Yeah, I would say exactly what you said. These cars have cameras on them. Turn on your Sentry mode. There's robotaxis are definitely going to have cameras on them, uphold the law, those type of pieces. I think that's a good way to go about it. All right, this is a fun one. What are the biggest macro catalysts that could potentially affect Tesla that you predict before the end of 2025? Let's say outside of tariffs.
I'll just say one thing on the vandalism piece. When you look at Waymo, there are a few rare instances of vandalism of Waymos. But for the most part, it's not an issue, right? People, for the most part, are actually pretty good. I mean, sometimes you find a wrapper or a water bottle in there, but you don't see a ton of people vandalizing it because you need an account to call it, and they're going to find out who you are. They're able to ban you if you're, doing something like that. So I'd say if they're in the car and they vandalize the car, you can just drive them straight to the police station, reroute. And, if they're outside the car can try and escape. It can try and get away. So I think what we're seeing from robotaxi deployments in the real world is that vandalism isn't too much of an issue. It's not that there are zero incidents, but it's not as widespread as people might worry based on the fact that there's no driver.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on macro effects beyond tariffs for anyone?
I mean, self-driving regulation, that's one. I think, it's if a region is very slow to approve self-driving, then that's going to hurt Tesla's ability to, ramp up their most profitable piece of their P&L in the coming years before bot really kicks in. But at some point, that's like a stupid thing. Like at some point, the governments that are slowing down on that are going to look so dumb that they're going to have to lift their regulations and allow these things to operate. So, I mean, it's to me like 1 through 10 is tariffs, and then 11 is regulation, just in the next like 3 to 6 months.
Got it.
And yeah.
Okay, makes sense. Hey, one last question for yourself, Sawyer, and then this kind of rolls us into the last piece I wanted to touch on, which is someone said, we need an update on Sawyer's experience with FSD on the new Model Y. Has time behind the wheel changed your thesis?
No, so before I bought this Tesla, I'd probably done 25,000 miles total in across all Teslas. I've driven every model, and then I probably did 5,000 miles on FSD supervised. So it wasn't like a foreign thing to me. But I have done FSD a little bit on my Y. It's super smooth. Like I live in an area where there's like a lot of roundabouts, a lot of crazy like 5-lane confusing roads. So it's been handling it really well. I've only done like a couple 100 miles so far on the car, but yeah, it's been really smooth, and obviously a hardware 4 helps with that. So yeah.
Very nice. Okay, and I guess this rolls in the last piece, which you're already talking about here. So you did get the car, and reminder for everybody that watched the earlier portion of the video, you got to see some of the inside of the car, take a peek around, check out some of the very cool accessories from Jowua to put in there. By the way, first link, pinned below the video. Make sure you're subscribing, checking out that link, code Gigacast. Sawyer, what are your just favorite things now that you've been able to play around with the car? And I think that you've shared a lot of videos and pictures as well.
Yeah. You know, the Model Y has obviously been the #1 best-selling car in the world in 2023 and 2024. And it was priced as a premium vehicle, but I never truly felt like it felt like a premium vehicle on the interior. Yes, the technology was like incredible, but the materials, a lot of the other things, they weren't up to par with the price. I feel like that's finally not the case anymore. I think the new Y actually feels like a premium vehicle. You get in it. It even has certain like things that the new Model 3 doesn't have, such as like double stitching on the dash all the way down to the end. They've also fixed some of the things like that were on the new Model 3 that annoyed some people, such as like the ambient light bar that goes all around the interior that used to reflect onto the windshield, which annoyed a lot of people. So now they've inset it just slightly into the trim, into the door cars, into the dashboard, so it doesn't reflect. It's just the little things like that they've improved from the new 3 to the new Y. But overall, like the cabin is extremely quiet. The sound system's way better, and it's a quick vehicle. At least the launch series is 4.1 seconds, which is only like half a second difference versus the old Model Y performance. So it feels like a really quick car. And yeah, overall, just absolutely loving the car. Best car I've ever owned, obviously. My only gripe would be charging speed. The charging curve isn't the best, and that's sort of been a thing with Teslas for a little while now. Companies like Lucid and others are really outpacing them on that front, especially the Chinese. Some of the Chinese vehicles are nuts with the charging. But I think hopefully that starts to change later in Q3 when the 500 kilowatt charging comes out for Tesla Supercharger Network and the Cybertruck. But I think this will probably be the #1 best-selling car in the world again at some point, if they can get enough of these things made this year and the demand is strong enough. But I absolutely love it. Amazing vehicle.
Are you able to charge at home?
So I have a garage where I can charge, yeah. But I have so many free supercharger miles. I've just been using those.
I would strongly urge you to do that, because even if you have the free supercharger miles, the convenience of being able to charge at home is very hard to describe until you do it.
No, I know you're right. I also don't want like bad battery degradation. I don't want to only supercharge because that's not great for the battery either.
Yeah, 100%. Can we pull up a picture of a sick freaking Model Y?
Yeah,
can we share that, Evan? If you go on Sawyer's thing.
So Evan, yesterday afternoon, I think I posted a thread.
Yeah, he's got all these pictures. He's got a with this what is a matte or satin?
So black? I got a matte or a stealth PPF, so essentially just a matte clear PPF on top of the stealth gray paint that I got. So that's why it looks sort of like a gunmetal gray. And then it
looks so good.
Yeah, and then I got some matte black unplugged performance wheels. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, unplugged is great. I just got a car tinted there.
Yep.
Yeah.
I really hated the 20-inch Helix wheels. I think those silver wheels are so ugly. I'm sorry, Franz. I like the 19-inch base wheels, but I knew I was going to get these unplugged performance wheels. So that's why I got the 20-inch wheels so I could just swap the tires on them.
Did you take these photos?
No, I hired Austin. He's tagged at the bottom, Austin DeSisto. And he actually, I think he told me he's worked at SpaceX, I think for like a week or something, doing some photo stuff. So, but yeah, he did a great job.
They've done such a great job with the rear taillight.
The rear light bar is by far my favorite new design feature on the Y. It's
so beautiful.
It looks good online, but once you see it in person, it's beautiful. It is beautiful.
It looks so good. On the road at night, it looks unbelievable.
Yeah.
It looks like a spaceship.
The ground glows red right behind the car, like an afterburner. It looks so incredible.
Sick. It's so sick. Dude, congratulations. Welcome.
Thank you. You know, unlike my mom has a 2022 Model Y, and there's like some creaking or squeaks or rattles here and there, and there's, you know, it also didn't have, it had the older suspension. So this car, like, the build quality is so solid, and mind you, this is like one of the first things off the line. They often tell you don't get one of the first Teslas. Well, I did, and there's really been no build quality issues whatsoever. So
you have the mature, like the last 4 years of build out of the Y though, and then the previous 3 from the 3 because they share a line. So you're getting,
you're seeing this a lot in the new 3 and Y. Little things like, for example, redesigning the taillights so that there can't be any alignment issues. It's all now just one piece, for example, in the Model 3. Or, you know, it seems like little things, but sound isolation, making sure nothing's rattling, nothing's squeaking. These are tiny little things, you know, it's not going to ruin your day if you hear something kind of rattling a little bit. But the new 3 and Y are so much improved in all these little things, you know, the way the door closes, all these little details. They've really gone from top to bottom. A lot of things that are too small to mention in a press release, but it adds up to a product that just feels so much more solid.
Yeah, I think this weekend I'm going to film a video going over every new change in the new Y versus the old Y. And I'm going to try to cover certain things that other people really haven't. But the list is super long. It's not a small upgrade. It's a big upgrade, even if like the battery and stuff are the same.
Very nice.
Also, I would say, Sawyer, you know, just plug your car into a 110 volt outlet if you can, before you get like a 220 or something. For a lot of people, if you're not driving a lot, even that'll take care of it for you, and you never have to go anywhere to refuel.
Yeah, and it came with a mobile charger too, so I don't have to buy one.
How many miles do you drive a day, usually?
Not many. Well, actually, it depends. It's more on the weekends. I probably go like, I don't know, 50 miles a day or something. But
dude, and 110 might be enough.
Yeah.
Like legit for like nighttime charging.
Range was definitely not a concern for me.
Yeah.
Digging into his life here, like, all right, you're going to the gym.
What's your social security number?
It's no. But the last thing I'll say is, you know, obviously I'm in sort of in a privileged position in terms of my following, and part of that has been I was able to get a lot of referrals, and I used $20,000 in Tesla credits towards this Y, so that dropped the price from like 60 to 40. Then there was the EV credit, that's 7,500, so that brings it down to like 33-ish, 32,500. And then I have the trade-in for my gas car that they owned, and so that brings it down to the 20s. So I have this car that was like $60,000, $70,000. And no sales tax where I live too. So I'm getting this incredible car for like 20 something grand all in. So it's amazing. Incredible deal. I'm fortunate in that regard.
Well, you deserve everything that comes your way. So you're putting in an insane amount of work. You have really high quality content. I view you as my go-to place for Tesla news and Musk industry news and stuff. So I think you deserve that and then some.
I appreciate it.
Sure.
It's a long time coming, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, the referral program is so great for existing Tesla owners. I mean, I got free FSD using the referral program. So if you own a Tesla and you want another Tesla, maybe you want to upgrade to the new 3 or Y, go sell your friends some Teslas. You'll get $500 for every Tesla you sell, and you can save those up and even get a discount on a new car like Sawyer did.
I was telling Omid, a VP at Tesla, he back at Gigacast last month, and how popular the new referral program is. And I think he was one of the ones that actually had this idea to come up with this new system. And it's a much more effective system than giving two people $500 each versus just doing $1,000 price discount on the configurator, because the $500 each actually encourages people to go out and sell Teslas. So it's a great system. I think it's been really popular, and it works well.
Shout out referrals. A lot happened in this episode. Obviously, we were talking tariffs in the beginning, and that changed about halfway through. Glad we got to share our thoughts and updated pieces there. Tesla having a doozy of a day for those that are paying attention to it. Let's get some quick final comments before we wrap this one up. Omar, anything else on your mind?
In the long term, tariffs in this trade war won't matter. I don't know what the outcome is, but I can already tell you that it's going to be immaterial compared to the tsunami that AI is bringing into our economy. Unsupervised FSD, robotics, LLMs. I mean, you guys see the crazy things that are happening. This is a new industrial revolution that's coming. It's a tsunami that's coming for the economy. And the tariff, that's, little splashes in the water by comparison. I know it may not seem like it when the news cycle is so dominated by these tariffs, but this is definitely a moment where I think it's going to benefit investors to focus on the long term. And I think the long-term future is really bright, and not even Trump can stop that from happening.
Very well put. Farzad?
This is crazy. Crazy time. I'm sure things will be different 24 hours from now. But the question becomes, is this a reversal of where we're going, or is there more to come? I think I am very surprised by what just transpired earlier with, I know Omar said it was very predictable that it was going to happen. My guess was it was going to happen later, but it seems like we're getting action already.
Yeah, so, even I didn't think it was going to happen during our episode.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought there was going to be some time. So I think now what I'm curious to figure out is like, is this like, again, not investment or financial advice, but is this the bottom? What was the intent behind doing this? Is this China getting cornered? Is this Trump folding? What does that mean for Tesla, et cetera, et cetera? There's a lot of questions that I need to answer for myself in the coming days. And then lastly, I'm pretty sure they're pretty good with not banging on the table today. Can you guys confirm?
I think it was the new environment. I think not in the office. Yeah, I didn't hear any table banging today.
Good.
That's just because of Trump's 100% tariff on table bangs.
Yeah. I definitely didn't want to. I didn't want to break my table because then I
saw someone comment like Farzad should just get one of those floor stand mics and just have no guests and just stand in the middle of the room.
I would figure out a way. My ticks are too I have too many. I'm literally banging on my legs as I'm talking and have this thing next to me. Yeah. I might be autistic. I should probably.
We're all on the spectrum to some degree, probably.
Probably, yeah.
He's the next candidate for love on the spectrum. Sawyer?
I don't really have much to add. Elon just reposted you, Farzad. So yeah, tune in next week for more craziness.
Right.
Yeah, very nice. He just got that. That was your tweet from, I think, last night or the morning where you talked about Grok being embedded in X during this fiasco. Okay. He just retweeted that one.
It's true. It's been insanely helpful.
Yeah.
It's been insanely helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Everybody, reminder again, if you're watching this, I've said at the beginning, but 73% of you on YouTube watching these videos, loving these videos, but not subscribing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. There's so much more to come. We drop shorts throughout the week as well that'll continue to contribute to your education and knowledge when it comes to tech and everything around Tesla, SpaceX, Elon, Musk Industries, and so much more. Thank you again to our amazing sponsor, Jowua. You can use that link right below, code Gigacast, and get you some of that. Watch Sawyer's video again if you need to see the best ways to fit it in. And we've got some more cool videos coming from Farzad and Omar as well, showing you their favorite accessories and how they use them inside of their Teslas. So Tesla Nation, that is going to do it for this video. We'll see if by tomorrow all the tariffs are back on, if everything's happening. No clue. It's a 1-minute news cycle these days, and I hope you're enjoying the ride with us. We'll see you on the next one.